Today, as we're diving in to the government side and we're trying to understand an agency using their org charts and what's the value of looking at an agency using their org charts, I really want you to understand that org charts can help you pursue offices that'll most likely buy from you. You're not looking for, oh, hey, I know that HHS is the department and then there's agencies underneath. No, I want to get you to go down much deeper, 3, 4, 5 layers down. The closer you go to the actual need, or the lower you go in the offices, the closer you'll get to that actual need. And so sometimes you can go down 10 levels, and I'll talk about that in a minute in the training. But I want to give you a story that just really drives this home. Gus Phelps, my partner in here, if you see him in the chat, say hi. All of you should be connected with Gus. But he and I were working together, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago. And when we were getting started, he was going into DLA. And we had done research, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but he had found this document that allowed him to go through it and identify these offices that were in that document. They were listed in this Defense Logistics Agency document, but they were nowhere on their website. There were nowhere else that he might have been able to find it. But because he understood the org chart, and that was a plan that he was doing at the moment, he was able to find this office, and he turned to somebody else at a higher level than this office down below, which we really wanted to talk to us. Hey, can you introduce us? The minute we said it, they're like, oh, sure, I know Sally. She's down there, right? And they set up a meeting. But you have to do that research around the org chart. When he got in there, it was awesome because Sally, she never gets called. And she appreciated the fact that he had read this document where she had contributed to that document and the value that was in there. So it started the meeting off. All of it happened because Gus was taking the time to just understand, first off, DLA's organization's a big organization. So where do we want to go? Which doors do we want to knock on? Which offices? And that's what I want to share with you today. That's where we're going to be driving through. And so we're going to talk about org charts and their path to federal buyers by using that, how federal organization charts can help you as a government contractor, what the value is to you. I'm going to break down today's training into a little bit of slides and a lot of bit of showing you org charts. So the first thing I want to do is just talk to you about where do org charts fit in to the 7-step process for federal revenue success. I teach this 7-step process instead of a really complicated process, a simple process, and I want us to level set. The second thing I want to talk about is just why it's important to understand org charts. I've talked a little bit about why. I'll give you more reasons. And then I'm going to go into 2 parts. One is to just briefly throw some terms at you to get you used to this idea of some organizational structures that happen. And then I want to dive in, spending the bulk of our time looking at examples. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I also provide you a chance to network with each other and meet other people, so make sure you're doing that in the chat while I'm doing the training. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. It's why I do this training day in and day out, right? And I never get tired of it. I've done well over 500, but 500 just in the last two years, a little bit longer than 2 years. And so we come back all the time because we like doing this and we like helping you. And I remember what it was like to be a small business owner, government contractor. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our newsletter, the Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It's here on LinkedIn. If you're out there on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, that's great. Appreciate it. But come on over here to LinkedIn. Connect with us and subscribe to my newsletter. If you connect with me, give me some context, because sometimes people connect with me after I say this, but when I look at the connection request, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know who you are, and I don't accept it. I don't accept every request because I want to make sure I'm only pulling people into my network who are in the federal space for the most part, right? But you could be brand new and have 2 followers, and I'm totally okay connecting with you as long as you give me reference and say, hey, I was in your training. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. And I just am one of your first connections, and that's totally cool. The next thing is I want you to subscribe to or sign up for the training. Tomorrow's training is follow the money using FPDS. So the Federal Procurement Data System data system. Anyways, that's the training tomorrow. I'm going to be going into a deep dive of using that tool. And we've got well over 100 people registered for that. I think 150 people. So not only is it good training, it's a good network for you to meet, 3, 4, 5 new people. But register for that training. If you registered for today, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Congratulations to the newest members of the 100 Club. GovCon in a Box is our SaaS platform. In there, one of the tools we provide is a federal visibility score. And so there's 360,000 small business government contractors inside of DSBS and SAM. Of those, only 56 of them are in the 100 Club. Trusted Consulting Solutions with Rich, Elasticity with Nick, Star Mark Solutions with Kevin, and I think it's 𝗟𝗏 Partner Solutions. Jimmy, you got to tell me. But one of my favorite ones about this, just a quick story, is Jimmy was reaching out to us, I think this morning or yesterday, and he was like, hey, I'm trying to get to 100, but this thing's blocking me. And Alex on the team wrote back and responded to him, oh, try this. And I noticed Jimmy hit the 100 Club this morning, so I was really excited about that. But these folks, these 4 people just joined in the last 24 hours, and they're joining a good group of people. So congratulations to all of you. If you're not in the 100 Club, go to govconinAbox.com. It's a free tool in there for you to see the score. Plus, I give you guidance on what to do to get to 100. It's not inside of our tools. Our tools are just the guidance. You go do this in SAM and DSBS. That's where the buyers look for you. That's the score, or that's the area that we want you to be very visible. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to be driving fast. If you haven't been here before, I talk fast. I come at you as a fire hose. You can always slow it down later and watch it at quarter speed. So let's start with the 7-step process for federal revenue success. The whole time I was a government contractor, right, 20 years, it was always these convoluted processes, if anything was visible to me. And they were just so hard to follow. We literally would have them up on these rooms we call war rooms, and then all of us would ignore all the posters that were on the wall. And as I began to teach more and more small businesses, thousands of small businesses since 2018, I began to realize that it can be communicated in these 7 steps if you want to have success in the federal market in a particular agency, let's say Department of Education. The first thing you need to do is research that agency, begin to understand it. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. When you research them, you're showing them that you care. The next thing is targeting. So once you've researched them, you begin to figure out which people in there are most likely to help you get in and have access to that agency. You're not going to be able to actually meet with them all, but you build a list of 1 to 200 people in targeting so that you move to phase 3, step 3, which is outreach. This is picking up the phone and doing cold calls. Maybe you use an email. Maybe you try to get a referral from somebody else. But outreach is trying to reach those 1 to 200 people you identified in targeting. And it's not just one meeting, right? It's having a couple of meetings so that you begin to establish a relationship. This is why I call the first 3 steps path to strategic relationships. Because once you get to the 4th step, relationships, those are strategic relationships. These are people who are committing to mutual success, whether it's an agency person or a teammate. You're committed to success. You're talking about more things. You hear about opportunities, which is the 5th step. Opportunities and having the right slam dunk opportunities allows you to write winning proposals, ones that you have a really good chance of winning, and win sales. And what I like to say is once you've won a sale, you're on the wheel of success in that particular customer, that agency, and you just continue to succeed until you do them wrong. But if you continue to serve them well, you'll build more relationships, hear about more opportunities, and win more proposals. So just right now, today, we're going to be talking about research. That's where the org charts fit in. Here, I just want to share I think I got 6 bullets here on why it's important to understand an agency's organizational structure. One of the first examples I wanted to use is just imagine shopping at a grocery store that doesn't have those signs in the aisles that say, here's where cereal is, or the dairy, or like cleaning supplies or vegetables, etc. If they didn't have that and all they had is all these products on all these shelves, you'd just be wandering everywhere. And every single time you might get lost. And if they shift things around a little bit, you're kind of crazy. But when you know the aisles, you quickly go here and here and here, right? It's very helpful to me with my kids. I'm like, go to aisle 4, get this, go to aisle 6 over here. And it's because I understand the organizational structure of the grocery store. Well, when I understand the organizational structure of an agency or a customer, then I'm able to navigate that agency. So understanding the agency's org chart really makes it easy for me to navigate to the places I need to be, the bread aisle, the cereal aisle, whatever, right? And avoid the places I don't need to be, right? I'm not knocking the napkin and paper towel aisle. I just don't need that today. And it's the same thing here. There's certain offices within an agency that you don't need to waste your time having any meetings or even learning about them because it's not related to what you do. The other thing about org charts is it helps you begin to speak their language. An example is, I'll talk about this in a minute, but the Navy has multiple buying commands. And you begin to understand, okay, this is NAVFAC, NAVC, NAVAIR, NAVWAR. And those are acronyms. I'm not even going to explain what they are. You can go look at this. But when you begin to understand it, if I pick one of them, you go, oh, that's NAVC, Naval Sea Systems Command. That's where I can go talk to them about the parts that I sell, bolts and nuts that help a ship stay together. I can talk to them about building ships if I happen to sell battleships, which I'm assuming nobody here does, right? But we're speaking their language when we begin to understand their org chart. Sometimes people talk about echelon levels, which I'll talk about. Those are all just things that make it easier for you to have conversations with that potential customer. I put here another reason it's important is you understand the operational workflow or what's going on within an agency. You begin to see priorities coming from one group, let's say the chief naval officer, CNO. I can't remember if I got it right. By the way, I'm a process guy and a sales guy. I don't pretend to know the intricate details of every single agency. I couldn't possibly ever know. I don't even care, but I couldn't possibly even know if I did care, right? I care about helping on sales side. So you, though, will understand the operational workflow and understand how certain stuff goes to a combatant command in the Department of Defense, and some go over to a I don't know if it's a functional command. We'll figure it out because I got it as a show and tell. But you'll be able to understand how that agency works in there. Okay, another reason it's important to understand the org chart is that you can expand your research possibilities. When you look at an org chart, you begin to understand, and you can go deeper beyond just that graphic org chart, right? You go into those offices. But when you look at an org chart and you see something, I'll show you in a minute, you're able to sit there and take that and go over to Google and say, hey, I just found this office. Let me see if I can go find people or presentations that have been done on this. And so it allows you to keep expanding your research. First, I was researching the Army. Then I saw their commands. And then I was like, oh, let me go into this command. And then I saw this. And I went here. And you're going deeper and deeper. And I'll show you an example of this related to cyber in the entire Department of Defense. Last thing is it focuses your energy. You only want to work on the things that are important. And so when you look at an organization like the Department of Veterans Affairs, maybe your world is in the Veterans Health Administration, not the cemetery side, not in the benefits side, right? VA is organized in these three major administrations, if you will. So the cemetery, the benefits, and the health. Maybe you look at that and you oh, health. And then when you start looking at that, you're like, oh, it's really the data analytics side. So there's things in there. But it focuses your energy down when you have a good understanding of an agency's org chart and you realize I'm seeing where I need to go. Now let me go put my energy and my team's energy there. So those are just some reasons on why it's important. Here's some common examples. I just wanted to throw it out there, right? There are departments, and think about the cabinet. If you've got the President of the United States, I don't know if you know this, by the way. So you have the judicial, legislative, and executive branch. Forget about the other two. It's the executive branch is where the bulk of what we do. So inside there, we have all these executive agencies. Well, the departments, secretary level, cabinet level, you have Department of Defense that's up there. This is the one that is a little unusual where you got then the Department of Army, Navy, and Air Force, et cetera, under that. But over in HHS, for example, you got HHS, Department of Health and Human Services. And in there, you've got below that agencies. I put in Echelon 1 just to get this term in your head. In the military, there's Echelon 1, Echelon 2, Echelon 3, Echelon 4, and you begin to understand these lower commands and where they fit. Nobody is really buying, and I say this softly, but at an Echelon 1 or an Echelon 2 level, right? What you want to try to do is get further down. The closer to the people who are actually doing the work helps you identify what it is, and then you can go back. Of course, Echelon 2 and Echelon 3 have people who needs, but it's a different level. It's very high. The next level down, I just put it down as buying commands or major commands. So in the Air Force, we call them MAJCOMs. The Army, we just call them commands, I think. And then in the Navy, we call them system commands or buying commands. So there's different terms. People might even tell you today in chat how they call it. But I like to find these because this is where my sales activity begins to happen, is at that major command level or buying command. Because now I'm starting to see the commonality that goes on, and I'll show you that. In a civilian agency, it might be called just a major office. They have like Farm Service Administration Office or something like that. There's a lot of different offices that are so big, they're at a top level. Some other ones to keep in mind, Program Executive Office, PEO. This is huge within the DoD side, where it's a huge office that has major programs underneath. So you might think a PEO ships for the Navy, and then it's got major ships. These ships sometimes take, I don't know, 10 years to build. And so that's an entire spending life cycle that happens in there. And so they have many of these. There's hundreds of programs that are run under the PEOs. An example is the Navy. If you're in IT, you might go to PEO Digital and learn more about what's going on in there. And then divisions, branches, you hear about division chief or branch chief. Begin to learn those structures. I'm not trying to teach you all of them. I'm trying to teach you enough that you go, oh, do I know my target agency's things? Okay, so let me show you a couple of ones. By the way, if you haven't gone to GovCon in a box, this is it. Get on in there and you can get your visibility score just by putting your company name in there and you'll see it. Okay, so let me start with giving you an example from the Army. This one here, I was just saying, I can't remember what it's called, but the Army command structure, right? There's Army commands, these major ones, and I'm not here to teach you what they are, but then there's component commands, right? And then there's reporting units. What are these? Well, you want to go through and begin to understand it. And as you go through and begin to understand it, like if you go into AMC, you can click through and begin learning more about AMC. It's like, okay, well, how is AMC organized, right? Here, I click on AMC's organization, and now I can see that Army Material Command, below it has Army Contracting Command, right? And I can go into Army Contracting Command, and I can find that it has contracting centers and contracting brigades and all these kind of things, right? This is what I want you to start getting into and beginning to understand. When I said echelon levels, it's just subordinate units to wherever you're at, and you want to find the places that fit for you best. And you can do the same thing. Let me back up for a second on the Army side. You can do the same thing right here on all of their commands. This is like a starting point for me. I look at USA South or something, Southern Command or Central Command. I'm like, that's not me. Like I can just go in there and go, I know that's not me. If I had this, I would print this and put X's over the ones I don't need to ever look at again so that I focus my energy on ForceCom or AMC. Okay, so that's Army. Here's another quick example. So I use this tool called Mindmeister, and I would love to have an affiliate and tell you to go there, but I don't. So go there on your own. But it's called Mindmeister, M-E-I-S-T-E-R, mindmeister.com. And in there, I love it because it's got a really sophisticated way for me to deal with organization charts, etc. So if you come down and start looking at this, one example I was just using is here is the Navy, where I have Fleet Cyber Command, right? I have them, but I also just kept digging down. And this is 16th Air Force. So it's a numbered command. Think, major level up there. And as I look at it, I can start digging in farther and farther because I did all this research where my team and I, we did all this research as we began to understand where is cyber spent. And if I zoom out for a second and you look at this, this is just a massive amount of understanding using the org chart, because then I can go in and go right here. Look at this, 91st Space Operations. Anybody who knows what it is can tell you what it is, but I don't know what it is when I'm doing my research. So I can go look and go, hey, is 91st somebody who I might be able to pursue to get money? Or can I go there and learn about the Air Force cyber initiatives, et cetera, that I can use upstream when I'm responding? Okay, let me come over to HHS. In HHS, I'm just showing you a different way to come in. In here, I got the Department of HHS. I always go to the About page to start there. And in here, you may or may not be able to see this too well, but I can see HHS org chart. I'm like, okay, let me click on it. And now I'm starting down that rabbit hole of digging in. I'm looking at this, and the first thing I can see is that the way they organize it is Office of Secretary, and they call these operating divisions. I call them agencies. But I look at this and I go, okay, I want to make sure I'm using that term operating division. I'm beginning to learn their terms. And then if I come down further and I start looking at any of these folks, so here's Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, ASPR, right? And I don't know anything about them, but I come here and I can see, now I'm seeing the next level org chart for them. Unfortunately for these guys, they're not linked. Let me try another one really quick. Okay, so here, this guy is linked to Agency for Healthcare Research, right? And I can come in here and they have on the left-hand side, you should be able to see they have their own org chart. So I went from HHS to down to this agency or operating division. Now I come in here and I can start looking at their org chart and I can see how they're organized around what they're doing. And I'm like, well, Office of Management Services, I wonder if that's where I could fit, because I do administrative support services, right? I'm beginning to learn about it. And the reason I like building my own org charts that look similar to this, let me back up for a second, is because imagine if this wasn't DoD cyber where I'm across everywhere, but all it is HHS and I'm beginning to build my org chart, I would really get a solid understanding. This is business development and this is research. Understanding your agency, target agency better than anybody else, including the people in that agency. Okay, so let me go to the last thing I want to show you. It's watching my time here. So these are VA organizational manuals. And these things, this one's 500 pages. This other one is 300 pages. So almost 1,000 pages. Your competitors are not reading these. They're not even browsing them, right? And if you have the patience to do this, the discipline to do this, you will find information that they don't have. So this particular one, Functional Organizational Manual for the VA, it's a description of organization structure, missions, functions, tasks, and authorities. This allows me to understand the very people I want to serve. It allows me to understand the language that they're using, the priorities. I'm able to even see reference documents out of this one. So when I'm trying to respond, I'm truly responding with an understanding of that customer. So I'll just move fast through this really quick, but let me zoom in here this way. So this particular one, this page, so one is, let me just show you really quick. This is about offices, right? You can see it. This other one, if I come down, this is, I don't know if you can see at the top, but it's National Cemetery Administration. I don't want to touch it because it'll go to it, but that's National Administration. Here's Veterans Benefit and Veteran Health, right? And so the way this first document is organized is by those three administrations. The way this other one is organized is by the offices. And so if I come down here and I'm browsing, first off, I personally browse through all of this. I heard somebody once say, browsing is a waste of time. No, browsing is the only way to discover things that aren't easily surfaced up. And so if you have the patience to discover it, then you're going to have success. Right here, I know is a big one, Electronic Health Record Modernization Program. I know there's people who might want to track on stuff, but for me, I'm coming down, I'm looking for something like this human capital programs, right? So the human office, this is the one that caught my eye. Human capital programs, because I know a couple of customers who deal with the staffing side and the recruiting and helping the government. So I come in here and I look at this and I can begin to learn about them through their organizational structure, right? I happen to know this document because I've been looking at it and doing studying. Once you start looking at it, you'll see the patterns. But I know right now there's an org chart somewhere up above that relates to this. And so hang on, I'm going to page up for a second just so you can see kind of how I'm doing it. I'm just paging up until I see an org chart. There we go. So here, let me scroll it up now. Okay, so now I'm finding this org chart. I'm like, okay, here's this org chart that allows me, I'll zoom in a little bit, allows me to begin to look at this and I begin to try to understand it. It's like, okay, so this one here is policies. I'm less interested in that. This one's programs. What kind of programs? Work-life benefit. That's for people who are already hired. I'm looking for, oh, here's one, alternative dispute resolutions, right? We got somebody in our community, Kia, who does that kind of work. I might encourage her to go look at that and dive deeper. Here's employee relations and performance management. I'm still trying to find out, do they do recruiting, right? That's what I'm kind of looking for. Business operations, learning development, human capital systems. So I'm not really seeing that thing I'm looking for, right? But by looking at this, oh, here you go. Maybe labor management relations. Hey, come on. Oh, it doesn't. That's funny. It doesn't hyperlink. So I have to scroll down a little bit, right? So let me come down. Take me 2 seconds. Policies, capital plan. Oh, capital planning. Maybe that's what I'm looking for, right? I don't actually know human capital. Let me not pretend to be that. But here I'm looking guidance on aligning the workforce with the needs and the priority of the agency. So I can start understanding this. By the way, I now know that this is an office. I can go research it a little bit more. I also am able, this is what I was talking about, through the org chart, I can find more research where here I can see this VA directive. It's a communication document talking about employee entrance and exit surveys, VA directive. What it tells me though, if I didn't know this before, I'm like, oh, I should go learn more about these VA directives around what I'm doing. So this is workforce planning and succession. That's a big deal, right? How are people dealing with the transition of human capital or people from the service? But anyways, I can start scrolling this, and all of it started because I made this point of saying I want to look at organizational structures for this agency, and it begins with something as simple as going right there and starting with the VA's org chart. It's like, okay, there's the org chart. Let me click down again. Let me click down again. That's what I'm hoping you understand about what needs to be done. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First thing is pick one agency. Don't try to know an agency in any kind of depth, more than one agency. You just won't be able to do that, and then you'll do it kind of half-baked. I was talking with a customer this morning, I think, who has got multiple people doing outreach, and so they're each going to take a different agency. They can still talk to each other and help each other with ideas, but one person is going to know this agency. One will know this, and one will know that. And so you can do the same thing. Even if you're a one-person shop, pick one agency, map out their organizational structure, and then try to find documents that align what you sell to what they need. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you did, put org chart in the chat and let me know. Org charts rock. That'd be a good one. Subscribe to the newsletter, register for training. Tomorrow's training is FPDS. Don't forget that. If you're doing over 2 million, you're interested in having our help accelerate your business, we have BD Accelerator Workshop, Business Development Accelerator Workshop. Just put workshop in the chat and I'll follow up, tell you a little bit more about that. As we move through our day, for all of us, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.